everyone, happy Tuesday and welcome back to another video. Today it starts the Americana collection. So we're going to be looking at all things Americana and celebrating the summer and red, white and blue. Today I am making red, white and blue to represent the American flag. I am going to start this soap off by pouring my lye water solution into my oils and bringing them to emulsification with my spatula. My lye water solution and my oils are both at about 95 degrees today, so they are coming to emulsification nice and quickly as I stir them, but I do want my batter to stay nice and fluid while I work with it, so I'm not going to bring in my stick blender yet. I'm going to split off two accent colours for this soap, the red and the blue, and I'm going to leave the main part of the soap as a white background. I'm colouring this soap with some zinc oxide and I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons in my main bucket, a little bit of indigo powder, and I'm using about half a teaspoon of that colour. That does make a nice deep blue colour. And then I'm going to use some paprika to get my red colour. I'm using about 2 teaspoons of that so I get a nice rich red colour. Now that I have all of my colorants into my separate containers, I'm going to use my stick blender to fully disperse those colorants and incorporate them into the soap and make sure that my soap is fully emulsified. I'm starting out with the white and then working on the red and then the blue. I am just going to leave these at a light trace for now until I bring in the essential oil blend that I'm going to use. So the essential oils that I'm using today are a blend of eucalyptus and spearmint essential oils. This is a beautiful, fresh, uplifting scent. It really reminds me of the beach and summertime. It's one of my favorite summer scents. So I'm going to mix that in with my spatula and get that fully dispersed. Once that's fully dispersed, I will use my stick blender just to bring that to a medium to thick trace. I'm going to be making a drop swirl of this soap. Alright, it's time to get these soaps in the mold. So I'm pouring about half of my main soap into my 2 molds, and that's going to create a nice background for the red and blue drops as I pour those in. I'm going to start out with my blue, and I'm just pouring that in from a reasonably high height so it reaches the bottom of the mold and in a thin line, so I get nice delicate swirls in this soap. Moving on to the red drops. So I want nice thin drops so you can really see the definition between the drops and the white background. And I'm going to do this in a few layers. So I have some of that white that I separated off into a separate container, and I'm going to create some drops with the white as well. So you'll see 2 or 3 layers of the red, white and blue drops on the white background. So I'm just finishing up with the red, and you can see I am keeping this nice and high to get those drops all the way to the bottom of the mold. And I'm going to come in with the white, and again I'm keeping it nice and high. So those white drops that I'm pouring in now are going to go right on top of the red and the blue. And I'm going to come in for another round with the blue drops this time, and I'm keeping my picture a lot closer to the soap so that these won't go all the way to the bottom, and it will keep my layers a little bit more separate. You can see that these are staying nice and close to the top of the soap mold, so you'll be able to see the different drops that I have in the soap. Drop swirls aren't something I do a lot of typically. I like to create different scenes in my soap, but I wanted to create something a little bit different with this red, white and blue soap to really stand out and celebrate the American flag. Alright, that is the last of the red soap going in, so we're going to finish up with the rest of this white soap to bring my soap right to the top of these molds. Now I'm going to do some piping on the top of this soap, a nice tricolor soap frosting. So to finish up the soap, I am just going to create a swirl right on the very top, and I'm using a pipette. I'm just putting in the very top of the soap so that it doesn't go all the way through, and creating those swirls so that if you can see the top under the piping, it will be a nice swirly design. And here is a close-up look at those swirls. I love how intricate those colors are with each other. So it's time to move on to frosting the soap. I did leave my soap to set up for 24 hours before I came back and frosted it, just because I didn't have time to finish it off the day that I made the soap. I'm using a heat transfer method to create the frosting, so I added my hot lye water solution, which was at about 210 degrees, to my hard oils, and then I let them melt with the lye water solution. And now I'm adding my liquid oils just a little bit at a time to my soap batter. That allows the rest of those hard oils to fully melt, and I'm stirring those in with my spatula to fully incorporate them. This gives me a really nice fluid batter to work with. I can create different frostings and it stays fluid for a good amount of time. I'm going to split my batter off into 3 separate containers for my tricolor frosting, and of course we are going to go with the red, white and blue. I am going to attempt to have red, white and blue all in the same frosting bag. This will be the first time that I have attempted this technique, so I'm really hoping that I can get all of those colors coming out nice and separately but at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and use some more of that indigo powder to create my blue, some more of the paprika for the red, and then I'm going to use some zinc oxide for the white. And now that I've got all of those colors in, I'm going to go ahead and use my stick blender, and I'm going to bring those to a thick trace so that I don't have to wait very long to start frosting this soap. You can see with the white soap it is nice and thick and a pipeable consistency. I'll be using a Wilton 1M tip for the frosting of this soap, which is a very open, large, star-shaped tip, which will make a nice frilly pattern on the top, but it does mean that my frosting needs to be fairly thick. So to get all of those 3 colors into my piping bag at the same time, I'm going to start by putting them in these freezer Ziploc bags, which will allow me to get them closer to the tip of the piping bag. I'm putting all of my soaps into the freezer bag, and then I can cut the tip of these off and pipe them into the piping bag. So I have already piped my white into my piping bag on the left there. I'm going to start working on the red. I'm just going to rotate my piping bag slightly so that I am piping down to the side of the white. I'm putting my piping bag in as far as my hand will go without getting covered in too much soap. Then I'm squeezing that piping bag to get that soap all the way down to the tip. I'm going to repeat the same thing with the blue and bring that up so that they all finish at the same level. And then we can start working on piping this soap. I'm going to go ahead and pipe down the middle of this soap to start with. until I start getting all three of my colors through, and you can see they are starting to come through now. So I'm going to go ahead and pipe the outside rows so that you can really see all of those different colors on the piping coming through. You can see that the base of my soap did go through gel phase, which means that my paprika did turn a nice vibrant red color. I need to try and make sure that the frosting also goes through gel phase to make sure that the top goes nice and red as well. So I'm going to keep frosting these little star-shaped dollops right on the top of my soap, and I'm rotating my piping nozzle slightly as I go down each side so that I can really see all of those different colors. I am doing a fairly traditional 3-2-1 piping structure, so I'll have 3 dollops on the bottom, 2 in the middle layer, and then 1 right on top. I was successfully able to refill my piping bag without muddying my colors too much. You can see that the red and the white have merged a little bit, but now I have piped a little bit more. They are separating out, so you get a really nice definition of those colors. And here is a close-up look of the top with those little star-shaped dollops on the red, white and blue. I love the way that the top of this soap turned out. I waited one more day and it is time to cut this soap. So I've put it on my soap cutter on its side. Sometimes those little mounds make my soap wires move to one side and produce an uneven cut. So by putting this on the side, I should get nice even bars of soap. I love the inside of this soap. You can really see that the red, white and blue have stayed nice and separate. You can see those individual drops in the soap. The drops did come out a little bit larger than I was anticipating them to appear, but I really like how much of the red and the blue that you can see in this finished soap. And each bar of this is just a little bit different with all of those little drops. Some have larger drops and obviously some have the smaller drops, but you can really see those individual layers that I have managed to create with these drops. So let's go ahead and cut the other loaf and have a look at the inside of this one. There you go. I love those little drops, and this is more the design I was going for, with the smaller drops and more white in the background of the soap. That soap did go nicely through gel, so the red has come out a really nice vibrant red color rather than staying an orangey color. You can see in the frosting that it did stay a little bit more orange, but it is a nice contrast between the base of this soap. I am thrilled with the way that this soap came out, and those stars on the top. I just love the topping of this one. These are my 2 favorite bars right here. The drops came out perfectly. The tops are so cool. So let's finish up by having a look at some of the finished bars with the layers and the drops, and I love that each loaf came out a little bit differently and the frosting on top. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.